Okay, so I folded this by doing, fold it in half, fold it in half again, and then fold it in half again. When you open it up, you should have 8 sections. All right, so make sure you have 8 sections. So we've got these 5 objects that we're going to draw. One thing I want you to do is to make sure that you are filling up the area. Don't draw a teeny tiny little sphere in this big box. Okay? We're going to fill up the area. When you're doing your line drawing, for us, we're using these 2 pencils, okay? This is your ebony pencil, which you're going to use for your darker values. This is your 2B pencil, which we'll use for our lighter values. When we go up into Art 2 and above, we start using full drawing sets for your drawing shades, okay? So what we're going to do first is start with the sphere. So if you look at this, I want to show you how to do it, and then you are going to do it. I'm going to take my pencil, and I start going round and round until I get the shape that I like. See how I'm filling up the rectangle, okay? Once I have the shape that I like, then I'm going to go through and clean it up some. Don't be so rigid with your pencil. See how sketchy I am? If you're too rigid, it's going to be too dark. You want it to be light because we want to get rid of the lines. Remember, we're going to use value to make the lines disappear. All right, in the video we watched yesterday, he blocked it in with his H pencil. We have a 2B pencil. But you're going to look at this and see where the shadows are. Do short little strokes. Use your 2B pencil at this point. It gets lighter as it goes towards the highlight. Okay, because the light's coming from this way. So you could, if you want to, you can put little light, a signal coming from the top corner, so that it looks like the light source is coming from that way. So I'm feathering it off to make it lighter. And I'm getting it darker as I come this way. If you'll notice, I'm leaving this area of reflection on the round object because there's an area of reflection right here. And then it gets a little darker right here, so I'm going to bear down more, and I'm doing very short little strokes, and I'm using the side of my pencil point. And I get lighter as I go towards the highlight. I'm shading right all the way over to the line, and if you'll look, the line is disappearing, because if you drew the line light enough, it's disappearing because you're putting 2 values next to each other instead of 2 values separated by a line. All right, so I've basically got my lighter shade done. When you're using graphite, it's better to put in your lighter shade first with your lightest pencil, and then you'll go back in with your darker values. In our case, we're going to use the ebony pencil. Now I'm going to do the cast shadow that's on the table. You want to make sure that the cast shadow is flat and not curved up or going down at an angle, because this is where the light source is coming from. I've got too much of a cast shadow right here. Still using my 2B pencil. Short little strokes. Now, I'm going to put my 2B pencil down. Clean up around the edges some. I'm going to use my this is probably equivalent to a 4B, but remember I told y'all if you have B pencils, the higher the number, the darker it is, and the softer the lead, or the softer the graphite. Then I'm going to go in and layer my darker values on top. I went too far and went over my area of reflection. You don't want it to be an abrupt change, like a black stripe and then lighter. You want to feather it off until it gets lighter. So you do that by taking the pressure off the pencil. I'm going to use my lighter pencil to go back in here for the area of reflection. And what happens is you are shading right up against the line and it makes the line disappear. I'm going to go in and make this cast shadow darker. It's darker right up against the object and feathers out to be lighter. Like I said, you take the pressure off the pencil. Then you can either take your pencil top eraser or the big eraser that I've given you and clean up around it. You do not see a line at all. You need to make sure that you have one value next to another value, which is white, and it should not be separated by a line. Then you can go back in with your lighter pencil and soften it up. Okay, so that's the sphere. Okay, so I am going to draw the cube, okay? We're going to have the light source up here again. I'm going to draw the front of the box, which is basically a square. I'm doing it darker than I should because I need you to see it. And look how much I'm filling up the space too, okay? Don't draw a little bitty square cube in the middle. So I'm starting out with a square. I'm very loose and sketchy with it because I don't want it to lean one way or the other. You can go back in and clean it up. All right, so everybody watch what I'm doing now. Everybody look up so I can know you're watching. I'm going to draw 3 lines that go back at an angle. These two get a little bit closer to each other as this one goes back. These two get a little closer to each other as that one goes back. So this one goes up more at an angle. So you do 3 lines that go back at an angle. This comes straight down to be parallel with this line. This goes straight across to be parallel with this line. So I've got my cube there. All right. Okay, so we got the cube drawn. Now we're going to look at this. You've got this dark side, okay? You got a medium gray and a light gray. You got 2 values right next to each other. 2 values right next to each other, and not a one of them are separated by a line. You got 2 values next to each other, not separated by a line. Try to hear that in your ears, okay? Into your head. All right? Not separated by a line. We want to get rid of the line. So, first he went in with your lighter pencil, short little strokes. We're going to layer our values. You don't want to press down on your pencil as hard as you can because it's going to create a glare and hard to see. That's why you should layer and layer until it's dark enough. So I'm doing short little strokes. I'm using the side of my pencil point. All right, then I'm going to go in and do the medium value, okay? So I'm going to do short little strokes, and I'm making these lines disappear. You do not want to see the direction you're shading in. Some of you were being a little messy with it, and that's not the technique that we're going for. We're trying to make a nice, neat texture, and you do that by short little strokes. I use little ovals, and that makes it layer on top of itself when it touches over and over again. You can go as fast as you want to, but make sure you're using short little strokes. You're going to be tempted to go across the whole shape. Don't do that. Short little strokes. Okay, now the top, y'all watch what I'm doing, okay? Look, I'm going to take my eraser and kind of erase this line, but I still want to see where the line is, so do it very lightly. Then I'm going to go in with my lightest value, barely putting any pressure on my pencil. This is why we practiced the value scale yesterday, so you can get the lightest values you could out of this pencil. All right, then I'm going to put the shape of my cast shadow in here. We want it to be consistent with this cast shadow from the sphere. So I'm going to go in and make it go to the left a little bit, but we also see it on the front of the cube as well, just a little bit. And let it feather off and get lighter as you go away. And we'll go back in with the darker values in a minute. Now I'm going to go in with my ebony pencil. I'm switching to my ebony pencil. Make sure it's sharp enough for you. I'm going to bear down a good bit, not as hard as my pencil will go because I don't want it to be a shiny layer. We want it to have a matte finish, meaning we don't want it to be glossy or shiny. So I'm going in and making this as dark as I can without pressing down too hard. And you do that by layering and layering and layering and layering with short little strokes. You want to go through and make the edge of it crisp. Don't put a line there. Just go up to the edge and make it a nice sharp edge. I'm still going to make that darker. All right, now I'm going to make the cast shadow a little darker. If you look, it's a little bit darker right up under here. It's dark right up against the cube. And then it gradually gets a little lighter. Use the side of your pencil point, short little strokes. Feather it out. You don't want to see what direction you're shading in. Now, neither one of my sides can you see the lines. You want to see nice, crisp edges. Now, when you have a straight edge, one of the little secrets I have, or not a secret, tricks, I guess would be the right word. If you take a straight edge, everybody look up. If you want to make sure it looks really crisp, take a straight edge like a ruler or the side of your piece of paper. And you get a nice crisp edge. Okay. The hardest part I find for students is trying to get the cast shadow at the right angle. Okay, there's my cube. Okay, now I'm going to do the cylinder. So we're going to start out with an ellipse, which is like a flat oval. I'm going to put my little light source up here too, so we all know that the light's coming from the right. I'm going to start with an ellipse. Remember, we want to draw very lightly because we want to get rid of the lines later. When you draw this, I'm going to turn this over. You don't want it fat on one side and skinny on the other. You want it to be even on both sides. You want this distance right here to be the same as this distance between the two lines over here. So you might need, on one of those extra boxes that we have, you might want to practice your ellipses, okay? So I'm going to try to get the shape that I like. Go back and erase it some. I'm going to come straight down. Very lightly, I'm going to come straight down. You want to make sure that it's not leaning one way or the other. I'm very sketchy with it until I get what I want. Now, this is what a lot of people do, and it's wrong, okay? Don't draw a line that goes straight across. That's wrong. You want this to be similar to the curve of the top ellipse, okay? You don't want it to be, let me do a wrong one again. You don't want it to be a deep curve. It doesn't look right. So you want it to be similar to the one at the top. Short, well, you are going to do short little strokes, but do it very, very lightly. Okay, and then my cast shadow is going to go this way again. And you want it to follow the shape of the form. Now, there's also an area of reflection on this side, if you look. And there's a little bit of area reflection down here at the bottom. Now, this one, he showed some lines in it, but we don't want lines, okay? So we're going to do the same thing by shading right up against the line to get rid of that line to create an edge. So I'm going to go around first, and I'm going to fill this in with the lightest value that I can get with my lightest pencil, which is my 2B. Clean up the edge. And I'm just going to go ahead and fill that whole shape in. Then I'm going to come down the side here and just put a little bit of a light shade, so this can be my area of reflection. And the same thing right here. I'm doing a little bit of a light shade because my shading on the rest of it's going to be darker. I'm doing a little bit of a light shade on this edge. I'm using the side of my pencil point again. Now I'm going to bear down some with my pencil, and I'm going to make it darker as I come down. You do not want to see the direction that you're shading in. And you do that by doing the little ovals that I've taught you. I'm getting lighter as I go towards the light source. Getting heavier as I go away from the light source. You're going to be tempted to use large, long strokes. You don't want to do that. Just go as fast as you want to, as long as you're doing short little strokes. Okay, lighter. To where it's almost white. All right, so I'm going to shade this cast shadow in. It's darker right up against it. I'm leaving that area of reflection at the bottom. I'm taking my pressure off the pencil and making it lighter as it goes away from the object. And it fades away into nothing. Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now I'm going to put my darker values in there. Short little strokes. Get lighter as I go towards the light source, so you can see a gradual change. All right, so I'm going to go back in and just put a little bit more of a shade right here so that it'll take away the line, because if you look at a cylinder, it doesn't have lines, it has edges. And I'm going to make my cast shadow a little darker, right where it touches the object. All right, now I'm going to move on to, let's do the cone next. So I like, one thing I do differently than he does, I like to draw a vertical line that's parallel with the edges of the paper that's not leaning. Okay, you want to make sure it's not leaning one way or the other. This is just a guideline. It will be erased. Determine how tall I want it to be. Then I'm going to have my diagonal right here and my diagonal right here. That just helps me keep my shape a little bit better. Also need to put my light source over here. Then I'm going to draw my curve. If it helps you, you can draw the other side of the ellipse that's on the other side, but you don't have to. Then erase what should not be there. And then you're going to shade it, just like we've shaded the others. There's an area of reflection right here. If you'll notice, it's the ones that are curved that have the area of reflection, and then the core shadow. I'm going to do a very light shading right here with my 2B pencil. And I'm going to do a very, very light shading on the other side because I want it to be a different value compared to the white background. Short little strokes. There's also an area of reflection here at the bottom. Now, if your background is a darker shade, you could just leave it white and it would make that disappear, but our background is white. So now I'm going to start getting darker, still using my B pencil, short little strokes, and as it goes towards the light source, I'm getting lighter. You want to kind of let your shading follow the contour, the shape of your cone. Get lighter as you go towards the light source. All right, I want this to be darker than the shade I used down here at the bottom, because that's my area of reflection. All right, now I'm going to do my cast shadow, and it's going to follow the same direction that my other shape forms have. Actually, that's a really long one. Short little strokes. Even though it's a long shape, you're going to be tempted to go in and do long strokes. Do short strokes because we're trying to get a soft touch texture. All right, now I'm going to go in with my darker values with my ebony pencil. I'm going to put in my core shadow. And that's going to make the area of reflection show up a little bit more. And you want it to be a gradual change. And then it gets light again, going towards the light source. This needs to be a little bit darker. Clean up the edges. Make sure you don't see lines. And you can also do what I showed you to create a crisp edge. As long as it's not a sphere, you can use this trick. Okay, now we're going to do the pyramid, which is based off of a triangle. So you can use any of the boxes down at the bottom to do it. I'm going to draw a triangle. I'm sketchy until I get the shape that I want. Draw it straight at the bottom. I might go back at an angle a little bit. This goes back at an angle. And then this comes up to the top. All right, my light source is this way. Now I'm going to go in and shade. Well, first I'm going to clean it up a little bit. I think I want this to go back a little bit more. All right, now I'm going to go in and shade. Short little strokes. Using my 2B pencil first, just to lay in the shadows, shades. Short little strokes. All right, now this one is going to be lighter. Now I want to erase this as much as I can over here, but still see my line so I know where to stop my shading. Because I want this line to disappear. You can see where I've picked up. There's something on my paper that's got an indentation in it. All right, so what I want you to get from this is that when you see forms, you do not see an outline around the object. And the secret to getting rid of that, or the trick, is to shade right up against the line to make the line disappear. So that you have two values right next to each other and not separated by a line. Okay, clean it up some. You want your cast shadow to come out from it. Comes out from the other side as well, just a little bit. Get straight up against the object. I'm bearing down a little bit more where I want it to be darker. And it gets lighter as it goes further in the distance. Then I'm going to use my ebony pencil to put in my darker values down here as well. And then you can clean up the edges, or the edges with the straight edge. When you are done, take a picture of it, upload it to your digital portfolio, and it's under basic forms. I believe it's under the basic form slide. So those are the 5 objects, or 5 forms to draw.